Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, we continue with chapter 13, lecture 2. Lecture 2, it's the rest of the implementation activities. We finished in lecture 1 the first two activities, which is coding and testing. We talk about a lot of different type of testing. And now we are going to cover here the installation, type of installation. There are many different types. Documentation, two types of documentation, user and documentation and technical documentation. We are talking about the training. What type of training? Again, there are many different ways to train the user. Could be online or it could be a manual. And then the support. Then we talk about the support, how we're gonna support the system after installation. Well, installation actually, it is, it's like, when you install a program, you set it up with there is an installer program or whatever it is. But here it is different. We are going to move the programs we have, all the programs we have written to, to the production environment, ready for execution. So it is the act of making the system or program ready for execution. It's an organization process for changing over from the current information system to a new one, which it is, moving the existing one, if there is an existing one, and we move a new one to make it really productive or in production environment. There are many different types or strategies we could say. We could really have direct installation. We turn off the old one and start a new one. We could run it in parallel. If it is really the stake is so high here, very, very important, we worry about our program or our system is not going to work, we could run him in parallel for probably, a week, a month maximum probably. If everything is okay, then we stop the old one and we continue with the new one. If there is a problem, probably we could continue with the old one and, the new one, we fix it and we put it back again. This is expensive one anyway. Single location installation. Sometimes, we work on a system for a big corporation, a big company, whatever, with many different locations. So it is good really to install it at one location for a couple of months, couple of weeks, whatever. When everything is okay, it's like, we give them a debugging time. We debug the system, and that location, and then after that, when everything is okay, we'll move it to all location. The fourth type is the phased installation. Phased installation, we put it like incremental. We put it phase by phase. Well, direct installation, changing over from the old to the new by turn off the old and start the new one. Well, it's easy like that. It's not really a big deal. Parallel, as we said, we're running the old and the new concurrently in the same time for a while. Then everything is okay. We turn off the old one and we continue with the new. Single location, again, as we said, if for a big corporation with many different locations, we try it in one location. If everything is okay, we'll move it on to the rest of the location. Usually it's called here a pilot installation, but it probably in a department. It doesn't have to be a location, whatever. Actually, we've done this back in 1987 for a system. We put it just for part of a department, in the purchasing department there, they work on it for a few months. Everything is okay. Then we move it on to the rest of the company. Trying out an information system at one site and using the experience to decide if and how the new system should be deployed throughout the organization. Well, this diagram shows, how really we're gonna do it. We install it in a single location and then we move it to the rest of locations, for that corporation. Phase installation, actually, it's incremental. So really, we do it our system in phases. Phase 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. How many phases really we have? How many increment? It depends. There are many different, reasons why we are doing it incrementally, and we discussed that back in the software engineering class. choosing which type, what type of installation we are gonna do, it depends on the constraint and the project, how critical it is, how important, how the experience of the user. All these kind of things, I think you should take it in consideration in order to check what type of installation we are going to do for this application. Well, this diagram shows, the phased installation, how we're gonna install module 1, then module 2 every couple of months or whatever. It depends on the increment and the environment we have in that location or that system. Of course, before installation, I think we should really done, some activities, which is like data conversion. So we have really to convert the information from the existing data to the new data, to the new database. Then we have to move all the, which is part really of the installation, move all the our programs, compile them, if there is a compilation or whatever, put them, in object library, and get ready for all these kind of things, Then we have to plan the installation. Why? Because sometimes probably the installation, it takes really long time. So actually, from my experience, back in 1995, when we installed the system in Detroit Diesel Corporation, it took us 2 weeks to install the system. So we wait until they have a shutdown week, actually 2 weeks. It was from August 1st until August 15th. So during these 2 weeks, we did a lot of things. We compiled the programs, we move into the object library, then we convert, or we run all the programs to extract the data from the existing system. We archive the system, the old system. We move the data to the new databases. All these kind of things, it's time consuming. It takes really long time. It's not really an hour or two. It takes really a long time. So you have really to plan it for. So consideration here, data conversion, loading from a current system, a planned system shutdown, business cycle of organization. We have to understand the business cycle in order to choose the right time for installation. Of course, when we talk about documentation here, it is not really we do all documentation now. We finalize the documentation, because documentation we start long time ago. For the system documentation, we start from when we collect requirement. When we did actually the scope, from the scope to the feasibility, all these really part of the documentation. For the user documentation, again, it could be a separate team working with us hand by hand in parallel. We are the development team and they are really the documentation team. So by now, this time or now in the implementation, we finalize the documentation. System documentation, detailed information about system design, specification, internal working, and its functionality. User documentation, written or other visual, either a manual or online, whatever, visual information about the application system, how it works, and how to use it. For the system documentation, we talk about which is the technical documentation. It's our documentation. There are two different, either internal or external. Internal, it is inside the program. The comment you put in the program, how to use it, what that function is doing, etc. All these, what that field means, all these, what is that system is part of what, all information which it's useful, for the person who's going to maintain the system and work on it later on. That's we call it internal documentation. External documentation, it is the document we are creating, the baseline project plan, which is the whole thing. And the data, the analysis, the DFD, the ERD, decision table, decision tree, the design, architecture design, database design, all these information plus the specification, the logic design, the whole thing. It is really, this is the external documentation, because it is external to the program. Well, as we said, documentation, it should really cover the whole thing from the planning, not from requirement specification, as really they're saying here. But the example here, they talk about, requirement specification, system requirement specification, resource requirement specification, type of requirement, function, etc. Project control, structuring, management plan, or engineering change proposal. System development, architecture design, prototype design, detail, test, whatever, generic document, architecture design document, prototype design, detail, test specification, test report, user guide, release, all these, acceptance sign off, the whole thing. In other words, the documentation, it is from A to Z. Well, generic user guideline outline, whatever, the preface we have, an introduction, configuration, function flow, then user interface, display, command types, whatever, getting started, log on, log out, save, error recovery, basic procedure, task name, appendix A, B, whatever it is, glossary, index, which it is, the normal thing, the one we talk about in the project video. Well, we install we document, we install it, everything is working now. Okay, we need really to support. But actually, before the support, it's the training here. They put the training. We need to train the customer and working on that system. Support, providing ongoing educational and problem-solving assistance to information system users. Of course, not all of us, the people who development team, they leave now the premises of the project, and somebody else will come and probably part of us, they are the one who's going to do the support. For in-house developed system, support material and job will have to be prepared or designed as part of the implementation process. So it is really part of for the in-house, which is the one, if we're going to build it from scratch, we have to have it, part of the implementation process, really, how we're going to support. The training, it's really, it's a time consuming and it's big, job, especially if you have a lot of customer. Usually, we train them, how to use the system, and that's if you customer or whatever. What happened to us back in 1995 for our system, we have over 500, 600 users. We have a lot of people, if we're charging for the training, it's gonna be a lot. So what really we did, we train the trainer. We train a few people, 1 or 2 from each department, and those people, they went back to their department and they trained. And this is, one type of training. That's the thing really we do. Sometimes, probably you put it online, a tutorial online or whatever. Probably it is really, now it's become some companies, they are really specialists. They specialize just really in training. So they give them the material, the training material, and then they train them. What really the potential training topics, how to use the system, probably general computer concept, information system concept, organization, system management, system installation, whatever. But most of the time, really, when we talk about training, we train him how to use the system. Because sometimes the rest of these topics, they have some ideas about them, because they are not really new customer and they are not new really to the business. Who's going to train those users? Well, resident expert. We could really train him, as in, again, if it is applicable, as we said, traditional instructor, let the classroom, training, e-learning, distance learning, whatever, electronic learning, blended learning, instructor plus e-learning, probably you have instructor and, some information, probably, and manual one, software help component, probably it's help, external source vendor. As we said, probably some companies, they are really, they are, specialists for just the training only. So really, you give them the material, as we said, and they train your customer. Well, training could be really electronically, electronic performance support system. In other words, it's online. It's the help, it is in the program itself. Component of software package or an application in which training and educational information is embedded. So around the program, whatever, when you have a problem with the program, whatever, then you could right away really ask a question or whatever, the wizard pop up there, and it could help you how to fix your problem. An EPS can take several forms, including tutorial or expert system shell, and hypertext jump or reference material, whatever. And all these kind of things really we cover in software documentation. Software documentation course, we cover all these kind of things online and manual documentation. Support is very important to the user, but has often been inadequate. Provide support can be expensive and time consuming. Vendor usually charge for their support using 1-800, 900 number, it's hotline or whatever, or charge a fee for unlimited or monthly support. In other words, support, it is really very expensive. You need some expert who was really answer the phone in order to give you the answer on the spot right away. Otherwise, it's gonna really be a problem if you put somebody who's answering the phone has no idea about what really you're talking about. So it is really expensive, so we need really an expert people, but who is the expert who's gonna just sit on the phone and answer some question? Well, nowadays it's automating support, The phone ring, then ask many questions, then take you to a special person or whatever, One approach is through automation, internet-based online support forum, on-demand, voice response probably, knowledge base, probably give you some answer or some whatever it is, electronically. If your problem is really critical and very important, probably it will, send you to a person or a technical person who could really give you a help. Help desk is a single point of contact for all user inquiries and problems about a particular information system or for all user in particular department. This is the problem, when help desk, help desk, it's, when the phone is ring, who is really behind that phone? That's the problem, Is he has experience or doesn't have experience, or he just really write the note and send it to somebody, and it is in single point, and from my experience, it is really very, very bad, when you have a help desk, especially in the environment I used to, like in manufacturing environment, a lot of user, a lot of different areas, whatever, it is tough to put all the problems in a single point of contact, I think it's good, the question goes right away to that person who knows, the answer. Probably in a few seconds, you could really solve the problem instead of going from the help desk to another person, to the manager, to whatever, and time consuming, and probably sometimes some problem, they cannot wait really that long. Well, for help desk requires technical skills and people skills. The person who answered the phone, as I said just in the previous slide, you need somebody who has really a technical skill, who knows what really you're talking about, and probably give you an answer right away. And this is, it's gonna be, it's expensive because you're gonna put those people, with a long experience. They cost you a lot, just waiting, and sitting, answering the phone. People skill, communication. They have really to have a good listening and communication dealing with the complaint and frustration of the user. Because sometimes you get really a frustrated user, somebody who get really mad or whatever. So I think you have to have really a skill, communication skill, in order to handle those kind of requests. Well, some issues which it's really you as an analyst you should really consider, like a user question and problem, recovery and backup, how to really recover database or backup of database, whatever. Disaster recovery, if we get a disaster, what we are going to do, if for a reason, all the computer, our computer is gone, our server is gone, is there a backup or not? And PC maintenance, person computer maintenance, writing a newsletter, setting up a user group or whatever. All these, I think you should take them in consideration. Well, why does implementation sometimes fail? In other words, why project fails? Project fails for 3 different reasons. We always talk about them, in project management. First of all, we have to understand what's the objective of that. We have to have the knowledge about what is the project all about. Then user involvement and management support. User involvement is very, very important. Management support is also important. Understand the objective and the goal, and understanding the customer, the system. Why is the system very, very important? There are 3 different criteria or different factors. They play really big things in success of the project. There are another important things, like commitment to the project. You need some people to commit to the project. They commit to the change. Usually, the project, it's always a change from something to something else new. So the change, it's really always change. So the project manager, or here in case in the analyst, they have to commit to the change. Then extend to project definition and the planning. Well, actually, when the customer like the project, I think they will use it. They like it, in the design. They understand it. It's easy. It is user friendly. Whatever. Most of these comes really in the self-satisfaction, subjective satisfaction from inside. They let you really use that. There is another, factors play personal stake of the user. Did the customer has an interest? Did the user has an interest really in this project or not? System characteristic. طبيعة السيستم. User demographics. User. Sometimes even they take in consideration the age. Are they really young people, or they are old people, or whatever, Organizational support. Is the organization support the project performance? If the system is really perform very fast, whatever, I think most people, they like it. And as I said, one of the important thing is really self-satisfaction, which is subjective satisfaction, which it comes, from when we talk about the design. Remember, in interface design, when we talk about the form and the report, the system or the user will like to use the system because he feels that he's satisfied there. When you use color, when you use whatever, all these kind of things that we talk about, in the design, those the things really which it make the user use the system. Well, this figure shows the implementation success factors. There are many different factors, as we said. The use. Look at the use, how an organization support is important. User demographics, system characteristic, performance, satisfaction, management support and urgency, which they have impact, and the user's personal stake, which really has impact on the use of the system. Well, for security issues, increasingly important issues for organization and their management, malicious software, malware, include Trojan horse, worms, viruses, and other kinds. It's a lot of them, especially nowadays, for the online systems. External sources of threats include laptop theft, system penetration, and denial of services, whatever. All these kind of issues, I think you should take care of, or you should consider them as a system analyst. Well, in this table, if you look at some statistics, for IT security, you look at the nature of breaches here. Malware infection, 67%. Being fraudulently represented as sender of phishing messages, whatever, 39%. Laptop, mobile theft, whatever, 24%, etc. Security technology used, antivirus, 97%. Firewalls, 95%. Anti-spyware software, 85%, etc. But look at the proportion of the IT budget devoted to security. 19%, less than 20%, proportion of spending more than 10%. More than 10% of the project, it's really sent and devoted for the security. Just 20%. Between 2 and 10%, 40. Between 1 and 2, 16%. In other words, it's probably those 1 to 2% or less than 1%, 10%. Proportion of spending less than 1%, just 10% of that. Those really, they don't have security at all, it looks like. So, well, it's a good statistic you could really look at. Well, project closed down, evaluate team, we done everything, we installed the system, everything is okay. Now we have to evaluate the team, give him a bonus or whatever it is, and then reassign him to a different project in the company. We need to notify all the affected parties that the development project is ending, and that's it. We switch operation now to maintenance. It is not really development anymore. It is maintenance. Today, the last day of the development, we install it, and tomorrow the maintenance mode will start. Conduct post-project review. Of course, the post-project review, we wait a month or two until we go to the customer and we try to review what's going on, where the good thing, where the bad thing, where is the defect, where is the weak point, where our strength and weakness. And in order, of course, the review, it's not going to help this project, but again, it's going to help us in the next project. We'll find our strength and our weakness to promote our weakness and close out customer contract. Of course, that's it. We don't charge our time to the project anymore. Now we charge it to a different project, which it is the maintenance project, and formal sign off. Everything is okay, and we are done with that project, and that's the project is gone. And by this we finish up, the implementation, chapter 13, and we are going now to the summary to see what's going on and what really we have discussed in this chapter. Well, to summarize what really we're talking about, in this chapter and this lecture and the lecture before, we describe the process of coding, testing, converting an organization information system, and outline the deliverable and outcome of the process. We prepare a test plan, and we did the test plan. We have it in the analysis, or actually in the planning. We try to fill it up in the analysis, then in the design we put the test cases and all these kind of things and we do them in the test cases in the implementation. We talk about the installation strategies, direct, parallel, single location, and phased installation. What is the good and the bad, and what's really the environment? It's really make us choose which really strategy we are going to follow. List the deliverable for documenting the system and the training, what kind of documentation, internal, external, and actually technical and user. The technical, it is internal and external. Internal in the program, and external, it's outside, which it is the document we create here, like the document for the project we have here. And supporting issues, there are many different ways to support: help desk, online, EPSS, etc., etc., etc. Then we compare many modes available for organization information system training, include self-training and EPSS, electronic performance support system, which is the online we're talking about, the online or the manual system. Discuss the issues of providing support for end user, help desk and other, which it is the hotline. Explain why system implementation sometimes fail, what really are the reason for the system to make the user really use the system. And we said, for the system to fail, in order, if we don't understand what the objective of the system, if the user does not involve, if the management does not support, the system will fail. In the meantime, if we understand the objective, if we understand the goal of the system, if the user involved and the management support, this is the three main factors for the project success. Then describe the threat of system security and remedies that can be applied. and show how traditional implementation issues apply to electronic commerce. That's the one really we didn't cover it because it is an example. So by this we finished chapter 13, and whatever left for us in this semester, it is the maintenance. The maintenance, I don't know, probably it's going to be one lecture, either a long lecture or we could split it to two small lectures. Thank you very much and see you.